Famous people and celebrities who passed away in 1972 in the United States. This is the third episode. Before we proceed, please subscribe to our channel to support us. John Lytle, he was born in December 1892 and he died in February 1972. His age was 79 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was heart attack. John Lytle was an American film and television actor. His Broadway credits include Sweet Allows in 1935, Hell Freezes Over in 1935, Life's Too Short in 1935, Strange Gods in 1932, Before Morning in 1932. In 1929, he began appearing in films, part of the Warner Brothers stock company. Beginning in the 1930s, he appeared in dozens of Warner Brothers films and was in over 200 films during his entire career. He often played supporting roles such as hard-nosed cops and district attorneys. He was Nancy Drew's attorney father, Carson Drew, in 4 films in 1938 and 1939. Among his other films are They Drive by Night in 1940, All American in 1940, They Died with Their Boots On in 1941, and Scaramouche in 1952. His final film role was in Nevada Smith in 1966. In the second season of Disney series Zorro, he played the governor of California in several episodes. During 1960 and 1961, he was seen as Dan Murchison in 9 episodes of ABC Western television series Stagecoach West, starring Wayne Rogers and Robert Bray. Walter Lang, he was born in August 1896 and he died in February 1972. His age was 75 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Walter Lang was an American film director. Walter Lang was born in Tennessee. As a young man, he went to New York City, where he found clerical work at a film production company. The business piqued his artistic instincts, and he began learning the various facets of filmmaking and eventually worked as an assistant director. However, Lang also had ambitions to be a painter and left the United States for a time to join the great gathering of artists and writers in the Montparnasse quarter of Paris, France. Things did not work out as Lang hoped, and he eventually returned to home and to the film business. In 1925, Walter Lang directed his first silent film, The Red Kimono. In the mid-1930s, he was hired by 20th Century Fox, where as a director he painted a number of spectacular, colorful musicals for which Fox Studios became famous for producing during the 1940s. One of Lang's most recognized films is the lavish adaptation of Rodgers and Hammerstein's musical The King and I in 1956, for which he was nominated for the Academy Award for directing. Lee Morgan, he was born in July 1938 and he died in February 1972. His age was 33 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was murder. Lee Morgan was an American jazz trumpeter and composer, one of the key hard bop musicians of the 1960s and a cornerstone of the Blue Note label. Morgan came to prominence in his late teens, recordings with band leaders like John Coltrane, Curtis Fuller, Dizzy Gillespie, Hank Mobley, and Wayne Shorter, and playing in Art Blakey's Jazz Messengers. Morgan stayed with Blakey until 1961 and started to record as a leader in the late 1950s. Morgan's solo recordings often alternated between conventional hard bop sessions and more adventurous post-bop and avant-garde experiments, many of which did not see release during his lifetime. His composition, The Sidewinder, on the album of the same name, became a surprise crossover hit on the pop and R&B charts in 1964. After a second stint in Blakey's band, Morgan continued to work prolifically as both a leader and a sideman until his death in 1972. He became more politically involved in the last 2 years of his life, becoming one of the leaders of the jazz and people's movement. Morgan was killed in early hours of February 19, 1972 at Slug's Saloon, a jazz club in New York City's East Village, where his band was performing. Orlando Ward. He was born in November 1891 and he died in February 1972. His age was 80 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Orlando Ward was a career United States Army officer who fought in both First World War and the Second World War. During the latter, as a Major General, he commanded the 1st Armored Division during the Operation Torch and during the first few months of the Tunisian campaign. Before being relieved in March 1943, he trained and returned to Europe in 1945 as a commander of the 20th Armored Division. Ward also served as secretary to the Army Chief of Staff, General George C. Marshall, in the critical years prior to the war and made major contributions to field artillery procedures in the 1930s that, a decade later, made the American field artillery specially effective in the Second World War. Ward's first assignment was as a commander of Black Cavalry troops serving with E troops of the 9th Cavalry Regiment on border patrol in the wilds of Arizona and New Mexico. He later was part of Brigadier General John J. Pershing's forces chasing Pancho Villa into Mexico in 1916. He was awarded the Mexican Service Medal for serving in the Pancho Villa expedition. Recognizing that the horse had a limited future, Ward became interested in an artillery and transferred to the Field Artillery branch and was sent to join 10th Field Artillery Regiment at Camp Douglas, Arizona. Mary Ann Moore. She was born in November 1887 and she died in February 1972. Her age was 84 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was stroke. Mary Ann Moore was an American modernist poet, critic, translator, and editor. Her poetry is noted for its formal innovation, precise diction, irony, and wit. In 1968, she was nominated for the Nobel Prize in Literature by Nobel Committee member Eric Lindgren. Moore entered Bryn Mawr College in 1905. She was graduated 4 years later with an A.B., having majored in history, economics, and political science. The poet H.D. was among her classmates during their freshman year. At Bryn Mawr, Moore started writing short stories and poems for Tappin' or Bob, the campus literary magazine, and decided to become a writer. After graduation, she worked briefly at Melville Dewey's Lake Placid Club, then taught business subjects at the Colley's Indian Industrial School from 1911 to 1914. Moore's first professionally published poems appeared in The Egoist and Poetry in the spring of 1915. Harriet Monroe, the editor of the latter, would describe them in her biography as possessing an elliptically musical profundity. Bob Woodward. He was born in March 1909 and he died in February 1972. His age was 62 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Bob Woodward was an American actor of film and television, best known for his role in The Range Rider from 1951 to 1953. In his earlier roles, Woodward co-starred in the Western films California Mail in 1936, Pioneer Justice in 1947, Range Renegades in 1948, and Junction City in 1952. Woodward played the role of a stagecoach driver in 2 television series, The Gene Autry Show from 1950 to 1955 in 43 episodes, and Buffalo Bill Jr. from 1955 to 1956 in 20 episodes. He was cast as henchman on the series The Range Rider from 1951 to 1953 in 24 episodes. He also appeared in the syndicate series Annie Oakley. In the 1950s and 1960s, he guest starred in 9 episodes of The Lone Ranger. 7 episodes of The Tale of Wells Fargo, 5 episodes of Have Gun, Will Travel, and in 3 episodes of The Life and Legend of Wade Earp. He worked as a stuntman in a film and television and appeared as a stuntman double for Gene Autry. He is a member of the Hollywood Stuntmen's Hall of Fame. Thanks for watching the video. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Have a nice day.